Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from hpwl.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Hello, Leslie M. Thornton, Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss. Today, I have a special guest, Kevin. How do I say your last name, Kevin?
Wathey.
Wathey. Thank you so much. I'm just going to read Kevin's bio here. So his path is woven with threads of resilience, innovation, and a deep quest for self-discovery. An athlete, visionary entrepreneur, and inquiring mind, Kevin encountered a life-altering moment early in his life, sending him on a search for identity. The decade-long journey led to a profound realization. He already had everything he was looking for, which I absolutely love that. This epiphany birthed Inputs Only, a newsletter and podcast where his personal and professional experiences converge, showcasing his commitment to exploring potential. And I have listened to your podcast, Kevin, and I would say it's very true to everything that I just read as far as you're being that inquiring mind. Like, I love the questions that you ask your guests and your commitment to just really having a conversation that can make a difference for anyone listening, as well as you're sharing your vulnerability around the different things you've experienced in life and your ongoing personal development quest. So thank you for the work that you're putting into the world, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Perfect. So yeah, let's hear a little bit, if you're willing to share on this life-altering time in your life.
For sure. Well, I initially thought, if you would have asked me, what are you going to be when you grow up? I would have told you professional athlete. And for basically my entire life, up until 21, 22, my intention was to be a professional hockey player. And I had pursued that incessantly up until then. And there was a turning point early on in my life where my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and given 3 months to live. So I was 16 years old at the time. She had just run a triathlon and she had low back pain following the race, and she thought she had hurt herself in the race. So she went and got a MRI. Turns out she had stage 4 pancreatic cancer that's metastasized to every major organ. Gave her 3 months to live, and that was December 2009. She sat my younger sister and I down in January 2010 and said that she was going to outlive the prognosis by almost a year and spend one more Christmas with us. And she ended up passing away December 26th at home with us the day after Christmas. And that sent me down an interesting path. There were two things that happened from that. The first thing was it sent me down a path of numbing myself through primarily alcohol, occasionally drugs, but that was never like a big thing for me. And the second piece, which was a much more positive piece, was that she showed me by example that our mind's more powerful than anything else we have. And through that, and really in retrospect now, having done a lot of work and gotten to the place that I am today, I've been able to see that was the biggest blessing she could have ever given me. So I left when she passed away. I ended up quitting hockey for a couple months, but then I ended up coming back, got drafted, went and played 2 years semi-professionally on the East Coast. Didn't go to the next level up in pro, and also didn't go play. It was either that or going Division I. Those were the two choices that I said I would do if I continued to play. Neither of which happened, and that then led me into acting. We can double click anywhere you want, but that then led me to acting. Acting led me to yoga. Acting led me to performing in Asia. Performing in Asia introduced me to yoga. And when I came back to the States, I got my yoga teacher training while I was graduating college. After college, I started working for Hyatt Hotels, Hyatt Hospitality. Got on their brand development team after a year and started to help them develop new properties. After about a year, I helped them open a new property, and I said I wanted to develop a yoga and fitness program for their guests and run it as my own studio. Was 23, 24. And they said yes, gave me free reign, got to do whatever I wanted. I was the self-proclaimed director of yoga for the property, and the people who had worked up their way up the corporate ladder who to the actual director position weren't a fan of me, myself, self-titled title.
Good for you though.
but
Uh-huh.
so that continued a year into it. I ran that. They asked me for 50% of all profits or of all revenue actually. And I told them no, I was going to go do it on my own. So I put in my 2 weeks, started a retreat company. Retreat company took me through to the pandemic. That shifted into online consulting for resorts and for wellness companies. And present day, that has then pivoted now into owning a property in Costa Rica, having a wellness diagnostic retreat protocol, which is another company. And we're currently in the developmental stages of building an app.
Love it so much. Oh my gosh. Yes. Talk about double click. I was exactly thinking the same thing as far as, your mom saying, I'm going to spend another Christmas and then, December 26th, just the power of the unconscious mind. Obviously, me finding hypnosis, which I used to initially help me get out of my food stuff, really was the catalyst, though, for me realizing that my mind was the most amazing, powerful thing. And when I actually learned how to harness that and go into, the subconscious mind and change all the beliefs and my whole life, like if I had a title for it, it'd just be like anything is possible. And that is what I hear as far as your whole journey goes of like your just ability to just pivot and move and create and anything is possible. And I'm just going to keep going and hopefully have some fun along the way and or a lot of fun along the way, etc.
Yeah.
I'm curious when the
Mhm.
hockey thing didn't work out as far as D1 or pro. Was that challenging for you, or were you able to easily accept that and pivot?
No, it felt like I was releasing a part of me that it required me rewriting the narrative of what I thought my life was going to be. So it was the first real big pivot in my life. And I think in a way it was challenging, but I think in a way because I had lost my mom 2 years prior to that, that was I never actually put two and two together until now, but I think that prepared me for being able to make the pivot because it felt almost like life and death. It's like, well, if this is not the way my life is going to be, what comes next?
Yes.
And because I had dealt with her passing, I think that that gave me a platform or an avenue to say, okay, well, this isn't the worst thing that could happen to me because that already did. And I got through that. So now this is going to take me towards something new. And I've kind of maintained that same mindset and that same mental model where I don't want to be limited by my own imagination. And it's always going to turn out better than you could ever imagine.
Love it so much. Yeah, I know for myself, as you're sharing your story, just thinking of those pivotal times of like I had something in mind as the goal that I wanted to achieve. And then once I got there, for whatever reason, didn't work out, that had me make those major. The first one was I grew up watching ER with my mom, the show with George Clooney or whatever, and was just so into all of the adrenaline and the blood and the everything. And I was like, I'm going to do that. Became a nurse, worked in kidney transplant first, and then had enough experience, went over to the surgical and neuro ICU, got all the adrenaline. And it's like, I was like, this is not for me. Like, I love watching it. I appreciate the fact that we're able to save lives like this and get me the hell out of here. But that was kind of like the first time I was like, oh my God, this was as far as I had planned out as far as career path goes for myself. Like, I got it and it's not it. And, there's so many different things on, just manifestation or how to play with energy and life destiny and all these different types of things. But if I look at it right now and I'm curious if you also have a similar, like, I never use the word bucket list, but I think I've always had kind of the energetic, like, I want to do that someday. And ooh, that looks cool. I want to do that. Like, that looks fun. Um, Having a lake house property, um, doing Airbnb, learning how to be a landlord, you know, and have that going, and like did all of that, you know, see what that's actually like. It's like I have the experience, and then it's kind of like, okay, maybe it was as amazing or maybe not, but then, you know, pivot, maybe shut it down, and then like, what's next? But my belief, as I'm even just sharing it right now, is like it's necessary for me to actually tick that box of like, I actually did it. My also belief is like, so I traveled around the world. I did 2.5 years internationally, did 12 different countries, Bali, Thailand, Australia, all the different things. Did a big leadership training and stuff while I was doing that. And it was kind of like, I want to get all this crazy energy that I have to travel like that out of the way, so that once I'm married, have a family, da 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 da, like I don't have any of that desire to like what else is out there. So I'm just curious if like you've had any of that experience as far as like I'm doing this because if I don't do the things that I truly desire, then I can't get to the next part of my destiny.
I agree in the checking the box piece because I think everything that you do uniquely prepares you for what comes next. So it's a stone in the path towards where you're going.
Yes.
I don't think there's ever been anything that I think I need to like do to get out of the way. I think it's more along the lines of I like to have firsts, and I'm always looking for things that I've never done in order to have that experience. And I think
Yes.
that like there are things that I'll spend money on and things that I won't. And I think where you spend your money also is a very good indicator of what you value. And I will spend all of my money on experiences and travel and education
Yep.
and really almost everything else in my life that's not tied to that in some way becomes irrelevant. Like I don't value clothes like in the sense of like fashion. I wear literally the same black t-shirt and same black pants every single day, and I have 10 pairs of them. So it's like things like that aren't things that I choose to value or that I enjoy. So then I pivot that towards the things that I do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nope. That makes total sense. And I think, I mean, you said the word values, and that's exactly what it is, you know, and we get to look for ourselves at whatever we are spending our money on is, you know, what we can show that we're valuing the most. Um, I think of money mindset just in general, you know, I'm sure as a coach and all the things is like, I coach people all the time when they're like, oh, I can't afford it to like, I choose not to, because
Hmm.
it's just so much more empowering. It's like, well, you know, if your kids needed this and you're in the chapter of your life where your kids are the most important thing to you and you want to spend everything you can to invest in their future, like that's amazing, right? So yeah, and I find that as I grow and evolve, those things shift. You know, the things that I want to spend my money on, you know, can change.
Yeah.
Um, and then kind of just trusting the whole path and process. That's interesting though, that I see it as like getting it out of the way so that because I think for me it's like how you set up this podcast and your theme for the year you shared with me before we started um on presence is like I find it to be, if I have things that I want to experience, a bit distracting to me as soon as they come in until I have my first, until it's done. And it's not that I'm
So
not enjoying the experience, it's not that I'm not appreciating it as it's happening or any of the things. And there is a part of me that's doing it so that I can be more present and not be like still having some kind of vision board dream list out there. The other
yeah.
piece, working as a nurse, I got to see, and obviously with your mom, like how precious life is. I had countless patients, you know, on their deathbed saying, like, if I knew my life was going to end this soon, I would have done so many things differently, you know? And at that time, it was just like, oh my God, you know, like I got to go and travel the world because I want to do that so bad. And I don't know how long I'm going to have. And I always say that I wish that people had that opportunity to go into a hospital or to experience something like that so you can really live your life. Do you have any belief about like you having those experiences and you know, doing what your values are asking you to do all the time and your health? As far as my belief is like if you are doing what you love and you're listening to what life is asking of you right now, that health follows. And I have lots of stories that I've read of like cancer getting, remiss and stuff in people's bodies as a result of them starting to go after their dreams. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on
I mean,
that.
I think everything's energetic. And I think when you're living in alignment with what's intentionally right for you and what feels right for you, your body is responding on an energetic wavelength that doesn't allow disease to manifest itself physically. So I think that I don't know if I have a set belief around that, but I do believe that when you are operating in alignment with what's meant for you, you can't go wrong. And it's also kind of the reason, excuse me, there are things that I want to work towards, and there are like goals that I work towards, but there's not really set goals. I don't really set like long-term goals like this must be this way by this date anymore. And the reason being is because I think if you operate every single day in alignment with what feels right in alignment today, you're focused on the input. And we can go deeper into the belief there, but we're focused on the input. And if you stay focused on an aligned input, the outcome will always be better than you could ever imagine because you're operating in something that's meant for you right now. Therefore, the outcome will always be what's meant for you. You don't need to try and control that thing. And to kind of digress a little bit to what you were saying before of like trying to get through experiences,
Mm.
I every so I do it every year. This was the most formal year I've ever done it. But this past year I did an annual review where I checked myself into a resort and had a list of questions and did a review. And I am very big into the physical side of things, as you can probably tell with the sports background and theatrical background. So I only wanted to do one activity at this property that was physical, and the rest was very cerebral. And it's interesting, the activity I chose was called Out on the Limb, where you climb this 30-foot tall telephone tower and then you walk across a wooden log to the other side. And you're obviously strapped in and you're being belayed. But I got up there and I'm not afraid of heights. And I looked across the log and I was like, it like wobbled a little bit. And then I was like, all right, well, we just got to go for it. And I started to run across this log. And I got to the middle, I got halfway. And the guy belaying me was like, pause in the middle, look up. And I looked up, and that was the first time I had actually taken in the surroundings around me and like heard the birds chirping, heard saw
Mm.
Mount Lemon in the distance, like felt the sun on my skin. And he goes, "Take a deep breath." I take a deep breath, and he goes, "The depth of your breath will be the depth of the experience. Now proceed slowly." And I walked to the other side, and I swear that's the first time in my life I've been fully present in a physical activity without trying to just get to the outcome.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love that so much. I just heard a Mel Robbins podcast today, and this expert was talking on, I'm going to forget the term now, but it's basically this actual medical term of when joy gets stripped out of our lives. And she was giving a practice of, spending actually 15 minutes of just being so present to all the senses, like just taking absolutely everything in. Going to be doing a podcast on that pretty soon for anyone listening. But that is incredible. And everything that you're talking about, and I do want to ask is probably the last question I've got to ask you on the inputs, but go back to what you're talking about as far as, the goal setting and then versus the daily alignment and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously, with our program, we're initially helping people get out of diet mentality, which is so much of the brain being oriented on got to lose X amount of pounds in X amount of days, or, got to eat X amount of food or whatever. And what we're using hypnosis and all the coaching on is just supporting people and actually getting present and actually feeling into, how can I just support myself in feeling good right now and not judge what it's taking for me to create that energy within my body. And then those inputs, which I'm excited to hear what inputs is for you, but those daily inputs and those momentary, every moment I'm just asking myself like, and what would feel good now? And what would feel good? Like, and that's my guide, and how I've supported myself and so many clients get to permanent weight loss is like, let's not focus on the end result, but rather how you're feeling in each moment and anything we need to tweak. So yeah, what are inputs? Tell us.
Well, I mean, inputs to me are the things within your control that dictate the outcomes we desire. So I don't necessarily know if I align with feel good in the moment, just
Mm,
because things feel good presently that are also bad for you. So
mm,
I think it's more in alignment with who you want to become or who you want to show up as,
mhm.
and aligning inputs in line with truthfulness and in line with authenticity of who you want to be. So the impetus, or the reason, the input, I should say, for Inputs Only was initially a newsletter to explain and dive deeper and to really document the things that I was doing in my life that I was getting asked or was coming up in conversation that I wanted to expose. And the newsletter became really well received, and then decided to expand into a podcast as well, and use that as a way to not only deepen relationships with the people I aspire to learn from, but to also create community around stories worth sharing.
Amazing. I love it so much. Yeah. And I love what you're saying about who you want to be. I find that depending on the severity of somebody's food addiction or right emotional eating, that there's a certain point of like allowing all the foods initially just to get past the fear and anxiety on it. And for them to discover for themselves without the mental judgments that this food actually doesn't feel good for me. So now I'm going to make the empowered choice from me, not because the doctor or science said so, to not have this food and then to line up with the destiny. So love what you're saying about that stuff as well. It's awesome. Beautiful. So how can people find you, Kevin? What's your podcast? What's the best way to access you?
For all the social media, podcast, newsletter, all that, inputsonly.com. And that will probably be the best place to get in contact as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And then if you could just any final, like if you had one thought for anybody listening as far as life and inspiration and inputs, final words for them there.
Do the verb, don't try to be the noun.
Ooh, do the verb. Don't, can you say like 1 second about that?
So I've seen this a lot where people try to become something by saying they are that thing without actually doing the thing itself. Like someone saying I'm an author, but they've never written a page in their life.
Mhm.
Or someone saying I'm a podcaster, but they don't actually record a podcast every day. And it's interesting. It's like, at what point do you cease to be something after you've stopped that thing? So it's like, at what point, if you stop playing a sport, do you cease to be an athlete? Or what do you perceive an athlete to be? So the focus is again back to the input. It's do the thing rather than pretend to be the thing.
Ugh, so amazing. I just sent an email yesterday called through awareness and action comes freedom. Because I used to just say through awareness comes freedom, but it's like you need the action in order to
Mm.
actually get the full freedom. So
Yeah.
amazing message, Kevin. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate that. And for all of our listeners, hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you for the next one. If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.